Thank you, Terry, for the nice introduction here. Okay, let's see if we get this to work here. A little bit? Oh, we're good. Okay. So our topic today is talking about smart city solutions that are making a difference in environments today. And the whole point of this topic is really for us to dig in deep and to really think about where these smart applications are in play, what difference are they making in a particular environment, and how are we able to measure that difference for the community. And so I feel very, very fortunate to be sitting up here with our three panelists here. I'll start with Mark Jadul, who's from Nokia. Next down is Aglia Kong from Google, and finally Keith Shea from Wind River, an Intel company. So,
next slide.
Oh, sorry. Yes, thank you. You're right. Oh, there we go. There, all at the same time. Okay, so first and foremost, I want to ask each one of our panelists to kind of dig in, give us an overview of what their application is, where it's deployed. We narrowed it down to one particular city. We wanted to understand where it was deployed. And then next, what are the measurable impact that it's making in that city? So if we could please start, we'll go ahead and start with you, Mark.
Yes, thank you, Lila. I actually picked a connected bus shelter we did as a trial in New Zealand, not because it's that high-tech implementation. A connected bus shelter is actually a piece of street furniture in which you put a small cellular communication device, in this case, some fiber backhaul sensors, a digital camera, and some extra stuff. But what's really interesting about this case is that it's really showing what a smart city is about. Smart city applications are in the first place about the user experience you're offering to citizens and to visitors. It's also about the design. To build such a piece of street furniture, it's not just taking what is there. You need to make the small cell invisible. You need to provide the right conditions. It's also about user interface design for the applications that are running on it. Then third important aspect is actually the ecosystem. This is not an application that one company can build on its own. You need somebody for providing the content and the applications and doing the project management and providing the connectivity. And then last but not least, it's about the business model. Because just think straightforward about this bus shelter application and who is going to operate it. In some cities, this may be a service provider because it's a connectivity hub after all. It might as well be the city administration who's saying, no, this is part of my smart city project, of my smart city infrastructure. This is my prime responsibility. Or this may be the transportation company because it's providing you with real-time travel schedules, it's doing traffic monitoring, it's acting as a security or surveillance camera for the security and the safety of the travelers. Or in many cases, it's a fourth party like JC Deco or a Clear Channel who are already providing today quite a lot of cities with street furniture. Most of the time it's not based on digital signage or on IoT, but this is really showing that you have quite a broad spectrum of business models that can be implemented, and it's really important to nail the right business model down for the right city. So what we've been mainly doing in this New Zealand trial is looking at the acceptance of the end users, of the citizens that were traveling and commuting with Auckland transportation every day. And what we found out is that 90% very much liked the concept of this smart bus shelter, that they were actually very interested in using the digital applications, the travel planning, the ticketing application, and that, to cut things short, the fact that there was a built-in surveillance camera, 3 out of 4 travelers felt that they were safer and that they were looked after better by the transportation company. So from a user experience, this has been quite an interesting experiment, showing that indeed there is a need, there is an acceptance for it. And then if you bring in some other technology, like I'm thinking of charging poles for electrical vehicles and some extra sensors for noise monitoring or for pollution monitoring, you really have a digital hub which can be a kind of the application backbone of a smart city.
Great, great. The safety aspect, I think, is particularly interesting when you talk about what a massive impact that has on the community. Okay, next, Aglia, would you talk for a minute about the data monitoring that you're doing in New York City with the Link NYC project? I personally have been there and played with it. It's fantastic. Maybe you could share a little bit more with us.
Great, thank you. Thank you for bringing us together. So let's start with, why we are doing this smart city data monitoring system. So for us, we kind of look at there is 2 audience for these type of solutions. As a citizen for the city, you want to know that what's going on in the city. So for example, today will be a good example. You're running towards the train station. All of a sudden, there is a strike going on. So it would be good that you kind of get that information when you are running down the train station, and then some people is telling you, hey, if you go to this particular location, you take a bus. That will get you to where you need to. So in this case, it prevents you from running down the subway station. From the city perspective, you want to know that how well the city is doing. For example, the tours going to all congested in one particular location, or that the buses going to a particular location taking the people where they need to go. Then from operator point of view, you want to be able to make money or like continue monitoring a smart solution that you are going to put in and operate. So the idea of this Link New York project is a way to try to address all these multiple dimensions of needs together. So what Google had done with a lot of partners we work with is that we've been deploying very big kiosk machines in large intersections in New York. Currently, there is about 1,100 kiosk machines already deployed in the city. Over the next couple of years, we're probably going to deploy to about 7,500 units across the major intersections of the city. These kiosk machines serve multiple needs. It provides Wi-Fi for the people. It also provides people to, use USB to quickly charge their phone. And in addition, it has all the information related to, what are the local restaurants and additional information about, what are the environment surrounding you. And it also allows people to provide feedback on what kind of events they're interested, suggestions to the city, etc. So that is kind of the first phase of the kiosk machine, is to provide convenience for the people and also acts as a data fabric hubs for us to start gathering information. Down the road, what we are also hoping to do is to work together with our partners to start adding a lot of environmental monitoring sensors. So for example, on every intersection, understand how polluted that particular environment is, and also what kind of pollution the people are exposing to. And furthermore, we also want to add additional HD cameras, which allow you to have a 360-degree view of the surroundings. Then with the data analytics, we can help the city to decide that whether there is traffic congestion, whether there is emergency evacuation needs to happen. And then in addition, that will become a hub to help you to drive the self-driving cars down the road. It's deploying in New York, it's working okay. We probably are going to expand similar type of solution in other major cities. I will dive into a bit more in the questionnaire sessions. Thank you.
Great, great. The transportation is such a large issue in New York City, and so having that really insightful, real-time analytics, I think, probably makes a massive difference for the community.
Yeah.
Okay, last but not least, let's jump in here. Keith, talk to us a little bit. I know it was very hard to pick a single application that Wind River is doing. You have many applications out there, but we were able to focus on one. Talk to that for a minute and share with us your deployment and some of the impact it's had in India.
Absolutely, it's my pleasure. So Leila, thank you for inviting us up here, and thank you for the audience for joining us. Let me start by saying, so a year ago I was on a similar panel, and as we were looking at smart cities, it was really within the domain of early adopters who were looking at smart city projects. But in the last 12 months, we've really seen that this is becoming a lot more mainstream. The examples that you've given, I think are becoming a lot more pervasive. And I think it's something where city managers are not taking a risk to become involved with IoT and smart cities, but rather they're seeing it as a more mainstream technology. The example that I'd like to use is the city of Pune, India, where air quality is an issue. And I think if you look at a lot of the cities around the globe, air quality has a real impact on citizens' health. So it starts with being able to accurately monitor the air quality to understand the proximate dangers that their citizens have. And so together with our parent company, Intel and Bosch, we've looked at how could we more effectively both monitor air quality and then start to take steps to mitigate. And what you have historically, if you wanted to measure air quality, would be sort of a classroom-sized laboratory where you'd have to have several technicians in there with a lot of expensive equipment. You might have single points of presence, so you couldn't get a good map of an entire urban area. And you'd have a very expensive operation with a lot of capital costs. So we're excited to say in teaming up with Bosch, we've been able to condense that down. So the actual footprint for air quality monitoring has gone down by a factor of 10. Similarly, the cost to monitor has gone down in a similar fashion. So now what used to be this classroom-sized monitoring station, I'm very excited to say, now fits inside of this box. So I brought a prop up here. And if you were at the keynote about an hour ago, Jonathan Ballin from Intel and R.K. Shenoy from Bosch showed off this microclimate monitoring system. And inside of this box, you have all the capabilities that historically you would have had inside of a lab. Not to mention, you probably can't tell, but this is utility pole mounted and can go in multiple locations around the city. And with the IoT device monitoring technology that we put inside of the box, you don't have to have a technician, with the exception of mounting it. We still haven't got around that challenge. But monitoring the data that's coming off of that, updating the system, pushing new capabilities to the system, all is done remotely via device management, which is where Wind River, where we come into play with the device management capability, where we can go from device into the cloud to help take the data off of the device and then also send commands back to the device via our cloud monitoring system. So Pune is one of the pilot cities where Bosch have deployed this, but really, this is portable and can benefit any city, really.
And my question is, do you deploy one of those, or are there many of those in a particular area? How do you make sure you cover the whole environment?
Yeah, good question. So we have 37 of these mounted today in Pune, India. And essentially what you would do is, work with the city management to understand, how widely distributed you would need to put these into your network so you get a good, accurate picture of the environment that you're trying to monitor. But, these, in a city of Pune with a couple million people, about 50 would be about the right number for an urban environment like that.
Okay, terrific. Thank you so much. So the next big question I want to address to the group, and certainly open it up, I'll start with you, Mark, but open it up to both of you if you'd like to answer it as well, is to talk a little bit about stakeholders. I'm with a company called Big Belly. We have smart waste and recycling systems that we put out, and our business model has really changed very dramatically in this space, once really focusing on smart waste and now being able to bring in other things like small cell and Wi-Fi hotspots and things like that in those locations has changed the conversation for us and whom we speak to and whom the key stakeholders. So Mark, if I can turn it back to you, talk to us a little bit about, connected bus shelter makes fantastic sense. Who are the stakeholders? Who funds this? Who operates it? Who determines where it gets to go? And then who takes care of it for the long haul here?
First thing, probably, when we talked about stakeholders in a smart city context, we used to talk about PPPs, private-public partnerships. I think in the meantime, the model has moved to triple P, private-public and people partnerships, because the citizens are playing. I was at another smart city conference last week, and it's really, if you hear a mayor talk, it's about how to bring the best user experience, how to get happy citizens. So first of all, there's a transformation from PPP to PPPPP. That's one too many, I think, sorry. But anyway, and the other thing is that probably each city is different. As I said in my introduction, you may have 4 prime players in this connected bus shelter. A communication service provider, the city council, the transportation authority, or let's say a digital advertising company. So it's dependent per city, and you need an industrial collaboration with different partners. If you look to the slide I've shown you, you see that there is a company doing the project management. There are application developers because you have different applications. Samsung was there for the big interactive screens. In Nokia, we provided the communication infrastructure and some of the applications. So you really have a kind of an ecosystem with different players taking their role. And to be frank, the financing mechanism really depends on what is the business model and the objective of the smart city. In this case, it was quite easy because it was a trial, so the cost wasn't that huge, and there wasn't a mass rollout yet, but very likely in this situation, this would have been, or even the trial was driven by Chorus, which is the service provider in New Zealand, because they had the fiber drop to all the different bus shelters ready, and they were really examining what are the opportunities of selling space for adding microcells or small cells, selling this to mobile service providers, selling part of their connectivity to digital advertisement companies. So for them, it was a way of looking a way to monetize the fiber investment they had made to all the drops in the bus shelters. But if you look at it from, let's say, from the transportation company point of view, for them it's a way to provide real-time information, to provide another user experience, ticketing services, and as I mentioned, through the camera, add extra safety for the travelers.
Sure, sure. Keith, do you want to comment on that? I think it's probably very relevant to you too, in terms of, we certainly know how the community benefits from measuring air quality, but who are the stakeholders you need to get involved? Who are the decision makers to fund and deploy such a thing?
Yeah, I think that Mark illuminated a problem that we all face, which is there are a lot of stakeholders. Yeah. And if you look at the buyer and the user, a lot of times they're different. The entity that's paying you for the system isn't the entity that's using the system. So you have to think about how do you appeal to both buyer and user. Let me talk about the ecosystem that delivers the solution. If you think about what we're talking about in Pune, India, our friends from Bosch actually rely upon a system integrator, L&T, in India to deploy and maintain these sites. So even though Bosch is delivering a solution, you have to then bring in an SI in addition to that. Now, on top of the solution that they deliver, if you want to run custom analytics or if you want to run manageability applications over the top of that, if you want to export your data into a external cloud storage platform, you'd be talking to somebody like Google or Amazon Web Services. So, suffice to say, there are a lot of actors out there right now trying to pull together solutions. The way that we try to address it through our parent company is we put together market-ready solutions. We try to bring the actors together. We try to define a solution and then work with SIs to go and implement the solutions. But I think we've still got to come up that curve in terms of consolidating around consistent, repeatable, scalable solutions before we see sort of massive economic adoption here.
Sure, I think you're right. Aglia, maybe you'd like to comment on that a little bit and also talk about, if you would, this is particularly interesting, I think, the impact of the data that you're gathering. What do you then do with it? What is the actionable item that a city is able to do and make a difference in that community for tomorrow?
Yep. So I really like what Mark pointed out is about the PPP. He added the fourth P, which is people. I want to add one more thing, which is the D, which is the data. I think that, what both the solution Intel and also Nokia pointed out is data gathering. If you look at what Google is also doing with the Link New York system is data gathering. There is a lot of data that we gather, and right now a lot of these data are being siloed, right? So in order to really make a lot of these smart solutions to work for the city, we have to figure out ways to get all these data coming together and use the analytics to provide the insight. And that will create the right type of impact we need for the city. So let's kind of look at it from the angle of, the stakeholders and also who is benefiting from all these solutions. So if I look at the New York solution today, I think that from the citizens' perspective, they're using the solution still very in the entry phase of using the solution. So basically, people are using it to charge their phone, to browse the information, and also to probably look at what restaurants to go to. But they haven't really tapped into the full potential of the system, which is basically letting the system tell them how to change their day-to-day life differently. So for example, if the system is suggesting you to stop taking the subway, go use the bus, how many people is going to take that suggestion? Probably a lot of people will still say, why should I? I know how to use the subway. By the time they get to the subway, they say, oh shoot, that's a mistake. So I feel that the system can potentially provide a lot of impact, but the people need to start changing their behavior. So that's observation number one. Observation number two is from the city perspective. So the city is working with all these partners, deploying all these systems out on the street. The system is coming back with a lot of information. For example, how polluted is a particular area, how much traffic is congested in a particular street corner. Now the city needs to take this information and do something about it. So for example, can the city start rerouting all the heavy vehicles away from this particular corner through a different street? Because in this case, you can start reducing the pollutions. But that requires a policy change from the city perspective. So I think that the second observation is that these systems are powerful enough to help the city to make the decision differently. But city also need to figure out how to change the policy to leverage this intelligence. The third thing I think is where that I see a lot of the companies is currently benefiting a bit So for example, we work with large partners to do these type of system. We work with companies like Intersections. We work with companies like the large service provider like British Telecom and also Nokia, Qualcomm, etc. to build and operate these systems. Right now, a lot of these companies do benefit from, helping to sell advertisement and use the advertisement to fund and continue operating these systems. But they could take it a further step, which is like really with all these data insights, we can take it to the next level. I remember the previous session, people talk about, can you offer data as a service? And I feel that this is the next milestone that we can really think about, is that now we got the data, let's sell it to help people to do self-driving car better, to manage pollution better. So.
Sure. That's great. Fantastic. It's amazing how quickly the time goes when you're sitting
Yeah.
up here. I have about 100 more questions for each of you. One thing that I think that would be valuable for everybody to speak to a little bit are the success criteria. We're talking about Pune, India. We're talking about New York City. We're talking about Auckland, New Zealand. What is success in these environments when you deploy something like this? Is it measured after a deployment? Is it measured a year, 2 years, 5 years? And when do you know that you've had success so that you can kind of move on and move on to your next kind of deployment? Would you speak to that a little bit, Mark, to start?
Yeah. If people ask me what is your definition of a smart city, I always say it's a city that is capable of reinventing itself. All cities have different problems, and in Nokia we use a model which is the 6S model, and 3 of the S's are smart, safe, and sustainable. And these are 3 things that are keeping city administration and city councils awake. Smart is about happiness of the people, about livability of the city, and also about being competitive in doing business and attracting new economic activity. The second one is safe. I don't think it needs little explanation. This is why, for example, we focus a lot on video surveillance and video analytics, and including it as part of non-structured IoT data. And then the third one is sustainability. We talked about mobility, smart parking, smart lighting, pollution monitoring. So I think if you manage to make a city smarter, safer, and more sustainable, you've probably reached 90% of the objectives that is keeping city councils awake today.
Yep. And also, I agree. And I think adding one more thing is that the people who live there will be a lot happier and feel that, the city really helped them to live freely rather than, it become a burden to them.
Terrific. And Keith, how about for you?
To add on to what they've said, I think I'll think about the 3 S's, which I agree with you, Mark, the 4 P's and the D. So I'll just add to that, and I'll say that I think smart cities represent a proxy for other use cases. But when you specifically look at a city, you're looking at the value that's created for the citizens. And if you think about the 2 vectors of value that we focus on, optimization first and then transformation, you want to optimize the environment for your citizens so that you can immediately realize health improvements, delivery of services, greater efficiency in the city. That would be sort of an optimization phase. The same thing would be said of other industries that are using IoT. They want to optimize first, and that accrues to the bottom line. But then because these systems are extensible and they evolve, you want to start to look at how you transform the services that are delivered. Again, cities are a proxy for other industrial and enterprise use cases. So you want to first measure, okay, the metrics for a city would be, you're improving health and safety. And I think city managers can objectively see that they're improving health and safety. And then you want to look at what are you doing to transform the services that are provided to the citizenry. And an important one that I want to underscore here is security. We've heard probably in every presentation today, security and safety are really important. So what we've done together, again, with our parent is we've announced the secure device onboarding system that allows you to securely onboard these devices. And then in combination with the latest release of our Helix Device Cloud, we can ensure security from endpoint to cloud and back. And I think all of this, no matter how you measure the benefits, you have to also be very vigilant about the security of the system.
Terrific, great. Thank you all so much. I would love to open it up to questions now from the audience. I know I can keep going for a while if we have the time, but I want to open it up. If we have any questions out there, just raise your hand. I'm sure we can get a mic to you out there somewhere. So any questions that I can see here? No hands up? Wow, okay. Well, then we still have a few more minutes. I'm going to dive in for another second. And again, if any questions pop up, just raise your hands. We'll try to address. Keith, maybe you can talk a little bit about the fact this is what you've done in Pune, India. Where do you go from there? What's next? And I know we've talked offline about some other applications that you have that kind of play into this and become more of a platform for you as you go from city to city.
Yeah, when we were preparing for this, as you know, we discussed what example we could use on stage, and I think because the benefits that are realized by citizens of better air quality management and mitigation, that was an obvious choice. But we're also, and you can see this in our booth or at the party that we're hosting tonight upstairs between halls 4 and 5, we've got an ecosystem that's built around delivering solutions for smart cities. And specifically, we're showing off a smart parking kiosk with a partner named Parkion. And this starts out initially as providing enhanced parking services where you can see availability of parking spaces, you can pay with your credit card, you can be reminded to renew your parking. So we're demonstrating that. We're also showing the solution from Waterous. Again, if you were in the keynote this morning, you would have seen this is a fire suppression pump that we can remotely monitor, so it improves enhanced fire suppression systems to the fire department within smart cities. And there's a few other that, like I said, I invite you to come and join us, enjoy some nice food and drinks, and see some more solutions that we've got from our ecosystem partners.
Great. I think we all just got invited to your party tonight, so that's good.
Please, join us.
Mark, maybe you could talk a little bit about what's next with Nokia. And there's so many things that you're involved in. What are some other applications that you have in the market that you're starting to gather the right data points to measure success?
A smart city is actually the place where different applications from many different domains come together. It's about health, it's about energy, it's about traffic management, it's about environmental monitoring. So what we have developed is a horizontal platform for creating applications, managing devices, collecting data. It sounds a bit 90s-like, but what we need in cities is a model where you have any device, any network, any application, and where you're providing synergies at the data level, at the connectivity level. Just to give a very easy example, you can't implement a smart parking application without knowing traffic density and probably pollution, and you need a link to your public transportation system for optimizing the routes. So everything comes together, and that's actually where we're aiming at, is having a horizontal implementation of smart cities as an alternative to a kind of piecemeal implementation that we see often happening today, and where cities are focusing on single applications to solve single problems.
Great, terrific. Aglia, do you want to comment on that as well? We have
Yeah.
1 minute left or a little bit more, so please share.
Definitely. So as you know, Google is really trying to help all of us to make sense out of the data. And this is where that I feel Google can provide a lot of value, because with smart cities, as I mentioned, we're talking about a lot of different silos of data. If we can integrate them together, and through the analytics, we can identify a lot of areas that we can optimize. And so this is where Google can help. based on that, Google also specifically launched a new cloud offering. It's called Google Cloud IoT. You can check it out in our booth. This is a cloud offering to allow you to leveraging our platform to quickly get insights from the IoT data. So this is something that we feel that is can help to jumpstart some of these analytics for all of us. And I feel that with all the data insight coming together, a lot of what we talk about can be realized for the city. So for example, from the city mayor point of view, they can quickly tell what area is most polluted, what areas is most congested, and also using the data measurement to tell whether we do improve over time, and also help you to model out what area we have to do better. So I feel that, the smart city is really going to be smart data going forward.
Right.
Yep.
Great, terrific.
Thank
A
you.
big goal here was that we get together, and unlike last year where I think we started talking about applications and their movement out into the market and the various locations where we're starting to plant the seeds, the nice thing here is this year we have real case studies that we can talk to, real measurable documented success stories. And I want to very much thank our three panelists here for not only being willing to talk about some of the applications you have, but really being able to dig deep and talk about customer results and key locations where we have these applications working. So thank you very much,
Thank you.
everybody. Thanks for coming.
Thank you.